Do you have one of these yarn winders sitting in your Amazon cart, but you can't really decide whether or not to pull the trigger on buying it? Well, I'm going to try it before you buy it. Let's get into it. Hey Crochet family, if you're new here, my name is Victoria and I am the owner of Vanilla Sunshine Co. It's a little shop on Etsy, and I do have a TikTok and Instagram. Not much on Instagram right now, but it is there, and there's also a Facebook page, so go check those out. Before we get into this, I have a little bit of small talk. First, I wanted to talk about, in my last video, I mentioned my Kindle sleeves going up on Etsy, and they are up, and there is actually a new one since they've gone up, but it hasn't been posted yet. But I'm going to give you a little sneak peek because it is so stinking cute. I absolutely love this yarn. It's so adorable. How cute! This is the Loops and Threads yarn in Fiesta, and I just absolutely love this colorway. No matter what stitch, it's always going to look different, but it's always going to be beautiful, gorgeous. So if you're trying to find a new yarn and a new rainbow yarn, Loops and Threads has got you covered. Not sponsored. I wish. Also, I mentioned in the last video doing some tutorials and whether or not I wanted to do a review or a tutorial first. Clearly a review first. I did try to film a tutorial and it did not go so well. I kept forgetting things that were important. They were small things, but they were important things. And my camera setup was just not right. But I do have something ordered, and it is on the way for that. So hopefully my next video will be a little tutorial. I'm not sure which one yet. It was going to be, for this, I was going to do it in a different stitch. But we'll see. We'll see when it gets here. One more thing before we get into the yarn winder. Do a girl a favor. Like and subscribe. It helps. It's awesome. It'd make me feel so great. It'd make my day. And, hit that bell. Do all the things. Or don't. Either way, it's fine. Okay, so let's get into this. Pros and cons, we'll deal with those in the end. But here this is. I got this one on Amazon for about 20 bucks. I think I had some points that I used on it, so I didn't get it for quite that much, but I think it's listed for around $19-20. This is, a manual one. It's not an electric one. It clamps on to a table, a desk, some kind of surface. That's about as far out as you can get it. I'm not really sure on the measurement for that, but that's about as far out as it'll go. This little guy right here, I kept wondering what this was for in the pictures. It's to loosen and tighten the clamp. Duh. When you get it in, it's mostly assembled. This little guy, your yarn guide, I have it tightened up pretty good. Is going to be laying flat, and you just lift it up and pull it tight as you can. That's going to be important later. As tight as you can so that it stays upright. This, what would this be called? This thing is not on there. It's off by itself. It has some writing on it. It tells you which ways to loosen and to tighten, but I've discovered it kind of doesn't really matter. It's got the little notches in it that will line up under notches on the base, and you'll just slide it in there. Okay, maybe it does matter. Slide it in there, tighten it up, but it doesn't have a stop. So when you see the little, I can't really show you, there's these little notches inside. When you see them in this hole, you're locked and loaded. You're ready to go. Okay, I think that's about it on this part. So let's put it on the table and let me show you how it works. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to show you, one second. I don't know if you can see it too well in this lighting. These little things on the bottom are terrible. They will tear your table up. I personally recommend putting like the little non-slip things or whatever it is called under here so that it won't tear your table up. It's probably going to put marks in this because I do not have any of those to put on the bottom right now, but whatever. So I already have it loosened up, and just slide it onto the edge of your table, and it tells you which way to turn to tighten it up. And I recommend tightening it up pretty good because it will start to kind of slip around, and that's probably why it puts marks in the table, is because you have to tighten it so much. But because that is its only form of non-slip, it will move around. See, like it kind of moves around. So tighten it up a lot. And see, even really tightened, it still kind of slips around. If you're using bulky yarn on here, that's when it'll kind of start to move. Well, right now it still moves, but not a lot I can really do about that. I do have this yarn already caked, but I figured I would just use this one to show you so I didn't have to pull out another one and do a cake on it. I'm not ready to use a different one right now, but I will show you a method I like. I should have done this in the little section before, but it's not a big thing. You don't have to do this. I just find it when using a skein, pulling straight from a skein and not like an already caked thing, that it kind of contains a little bit if you use a basket. Just throw it in a basket. What I actually really like to do, let me see if I can do this like this. I'm just going to do it center pull, so it's not really going to move around that much when I wind it, but I like to take the yarn and pull it through one of the holes in the basket, so that kind of even helps it a little bit more. So when it does start to bounce around in a skein, it doesn't pull and come out of the basket. It just kind of keeps it in there. And then I'll just put that basket on the floor. And that's it. That part is good to go. So you'll take your yarn, and I may have set this up incorrectly for camera purposes, but you'll take your yarn, wrap it under, pull it through this little main loop, I guess, and then under this little drop down guy, and make sure that this thing is pulled tight. And then let's turn it, see if you can see it. You've got these two notches right here for you to put your yarn in, and it'll hold it. I at first was like, that is not going to hold anything, but it does, surprisingly. Just slip it into both and it will hold it down for you. Oh, I have too much of a tail going. There we go. And one thing about this little guy, if there's too much tension pulled on it, like, well, I just messed that up. If there's too much tension pulled on it, let me see if I can get it to do it. Well, after a while, it'll start to pull it. And if your cake is getting bigger, this little notch down here will catch your cake. Or it'll just and fall down. So my way around that, which I wish this was a little bit better, like it had a locking mechanism or something, I just take the yarn and kind of hold it back out of the way, and that way it doesn't get pulling this way and knock it down. All right, so got that in there, got our yarn in our basket. Gonna pull this to the side. Don't pull too much tension on it right this second, and then you can just start twisting. And I'm not like holding this. I'm just kind of keeping it back. And that's really just it. There are going to be times with your yarn that it does start to maybe tangle up, especially if you're pulling it straight out of a skein, but that's okay. That's the kind of the point in this, to get the tangles out now instead of while you're in the middle of a project. I will say, don't do what I just did when you're further in the skein or further in the cake. Don't stop unless you absolutely have to, and if you do, that's when you want to keep some tension on this, because if you don't, it will start to unravel, because this is putting tension on it by itself. And when you let that tension stop, it's going to go poof and start to unravel. But because I did already have this one caked, I shouldn't run into any tangles, but we'll see. I'll just do this whole one. It's not a very big skein. I'll kind of get my hand in focus. And sometimes I'll keep it like this, just so if it does tangle, I can put tension on it real fast. But how satisfying is that, just to watch it go? I don't like to go too fast in case there is a knot, but I also don't like to go too slow because it won't put much tension on it and you'll start getting a loose cake. It may take a little playing with to find your speed, but once you find it, it's pretty easy. And you can even feel it putting tension on it. Like you can feel that it kind of gets a little bit harder to spin, which that's not a bad thing, having tension on there. It keeps your cake nice and together. I'm going to slow down so you can see something real quick. Let me get it in a decent spot. If you do stop it, because you just need to stop for a second, try to have it to where it's kind of closer to this area where it's pulling, like it's getting ready to start the bottom portion. Otherwise, if it's stopped like up here, oop, you can't really see that. If it stopped up here, it will kind of just pop off the top because it didn't quite finish a spin. So it's going to pop off the top. But also I wanted to show you, I'm twisting the wrong way. Show you, let me get it to where I can. This is what I was talking about. With bulky yarns, and I think I'm going to show you a bulky yarn here in just a minute, but it's a smaller stand, I guess you could call it. So you have to be really careful with some stuff, making sure it doesn't slip down under here, because if it slips under here, there's a little gear up under the bottom that it can catch in. It can tear your yarn up. But if you're really careful, you can get it out. But it's better, just to kind of prevent that. I think this one's almost done. Yeah, this one's almost done. And then I'll show you a bulky, because the bulkies are definitely a little bit trickier. All right, we've got to the end. So I'm just going to kind of hold this. And what I like to do is I like to go ahead and kind of grab on the other side, so that I can pull it out, let it keep kind of spinning where it was going to go. And I didn't get it good that time. And then, let me see if I can stay where you can see me. I'll just pull up a piece. If I'm not about to use it right that second, I'll pull up a piece, pull that down, kind of tuck it so it's in place. And then you can just, let me turn it. Your yarn that's right here, you can kind of tell like that this is the part that goes into the cake and that this is going to be the tail. So I'll just pull it up, get it out of the little grooves, lay it down, and then you can just slide her off and you've got a little cake. Cute little adorable little yarn cake. I just absolutely love the little pattern that forms in here. Okay, let me grab some bulky blanket yarn and show you that. 1 second. Okay, so the problem with that is I have caked most of my bulky blanket yarn, so I'm not going to be able to do straight off a skein, but I know this one is bigger, so I can kind of show you my, not really a hack, just my way around it getting up under the bottom. And it may still get up under the bottom, just forewarning. It may get there, and then I'll have to show you how to get it out from under here. But I will show you with this one. The only difference is I'm not going to have the knots coming straight out of the skein, because as most people know that use bulky blanket yarn, the knot when you center pull on those is about the size of this little cake. It's huge. But anyways, so I'm going to pull from the center on this one. I'm going to throw this down in my basket and do my little basket hole trick. Going to do this the same way, but in a little while I will have to knock this guy down and kind of guide it myself. But for the most part, it's the same thing. It's just once you start getting out here, it gets a little more tricky. And I will say, I won't really have that problem with this one, but when it is coming out of a skein, however you want to pronounce it, it does pull a good amount of tension, and so that's why this is really good, or else it's going to just pull and pull and pull until this knocks down. You can already kind of see like it's kind of pulling on my hand a little bit, but after that first little bit gets loose, it kind of stops pulling so much. It's just so satisfying to watch and see how fast that builds up. With bulky yarns, you're definitely not going to want to slow down and stop. Once you get used to it, you'll kind of figure out where you can. And I'm about to show you real quick a trick, because see, it's already starting to try to go up under the bottom. So we'll push that up real quick. And what I do is I will kind of, with my foot, hold a little bit of tension on that so it doesn't start coming loose. And I will take this and very, very gently slide it up a little bit so that it gives it some space up under the bottom to kind of go up under. And your cake will kind of have a indentation on the top and bottom. That's not a big deal. It's fine. It's just preventing it from going up under the bottom of this thing and getting all wrapped up in these gears. And then I'll take my tension and try not to pull it loose. And then we'll keep going. I thought it had already gotten up under the bottom. My first few times doing this, I did kind of like to get down and be kind of eye level with the bottom. I see another spot that's already trying to go under. Be kind of eye level with the bottom so I could see when it starts getting up under there. Yeah, it's going to keep trying. So I'm gonna grab and hold a little tension with my foot and slide this up just a little bit more. And I like to kind of take my fingers and run around here. And if there's any yarn that's trying to get sucked up under there, just kind of pull it up and then pull the cake up just a little bit. Get my tension back on it and keep going. The really unfun thing about this is if it does get up under there and you don't see it, you're not going to know at first until it starts locking up. I did have a little bit, that end piece, I'm right at the end, started tangling up in the basket. Whoop! See, just then, even though it was the end of it, obviously it's going to do that, but see, it's starting to pull loose. That's what I was talking about with you got to keep tension, especially with these bulky yarns, or it will fall apart like it's doing right now. It's not a big deal towards the end because I can just twist it up on there. It's not that big of a deal. If you do, I thought this one was going to be bigger where you could see this part having to be knocked down, but I still have probably about an inch between the high end and this. But it will start getting too big and this will start catching. This little guy right here will start catching on your yarn and that's not good. So once you figure out how to kind of guide it yourself, you can just kind of knock that guy out, knock him down, and kind of guide it on there yourself. It does take a little bit of practice. I practiced quite a few times, but it's not too bad. I'm just going to kind of wrap this and then find a spot and tuck the end. This one's not as pretty because I let go of the end of it, and then I have a bulky cake. There is a piece hanging somewhere. I like to, even when I take it off on these bulky ones, run my hands along, or my fingers along the bottom, make sure everything's loose. My little piece up top came loose by itself, so that's good. And just boop. And there you go. A bulky cake. If you have a full skein, a big skein, I don't know if I would use this or not. I would, if that's your plan, I would get a bigger one than this one. I would get one of those big ones that it probably has like an adjustable space that you can do this little guy out at, and it probably locks in better than this one. But if you're going to be doing full skeins, whatever, of bulky yarn, I would not recommend this one because I just don't think it's going to be great for that, because once you start getting down to this part, especially right here, that's going to start snagging because that's got kind of little sharp edges. But I didn't realize that when I bought this one. I thought it was going to be a little bit bigger, if I'm being honest, but you live and you learn. But anyways, there's this one and this one. They're cute. They're adorable. They're much smaller than the skein originally was. Awesome. All right, let's go back to my face. All right, let's talk about some pros and cons. First, and probably the best pro, is, when you start a project, you pull out a skein. If you are somebody, like a lot of people, that pulls from the center, there's a giant nest in the middle. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's huge. It's like half the skein. This doesn't alleviate that, obviously, but it does keep you from, while you're pulling to work on a project, having to untangle things while you're working. This, you just pull out of the center, or pull from, if you pull from the center, if you've got it sitting in a bowl or on the couch next to you, like I have done plenty of times, it keeps it mess free. Whereas with working from a skein straight out of the store, you're constantly having to unknot everything. I personally, right now, have a yarn stand that I will pull from the outside, so it's just unrolling as it goes. And it's great. I'm going to do another video on that thing. I love it so much. And partially hate it sometimes. Number 2, I am a huge aesthetic person. I love things that look nice. Most people do. And the aesthetic of a yarn cake, so cute. Granted, in a cubby situation, it's kind of hard to do those. I do have some, like right here, that are just out in front, kind of decorative. They're still in storage, but they're kind of out front where you can see it a little bit. And the third thing, personally for me, granted, this is not an electric one, it is a hand winding one, but I kind of enjoy that. I kind of enjoy just sitting there spinning the yarn, just spinning and spinning and spinning. There's something relaxing about winding the yarn myself versus having one that is electric and does it for me. And there's something, I don't know what it is, it's just very pleasing to watch. What's that phrase? It's escaping me. Satisfying to watch. That's what I'm looking for. It is so satisfying to watch your cake form and just spin and spin and spin. Perfection. Now, let's talk about the cons. This may be a little petty for this specific one. I hate the color of it. I hate it so much. It's so ugly. I do not like this tan on red situation. It's very outdated. It's kind of ugly. Like I just said in the pros for the aesthetics of the cakes, the aesthetics of this thing is horrible. But it doesn't need to look pretty to do its job. Another big con, as I showed in the little demo, was this bottom. Hate it. It leaves marks in your table. I have a desk that my husband made me, and when I first used it on downstairs, my husband made a TV stand. TV's not actually on it, but I just don't know what to call it. A TV stand, and I had it on there, and it left marks in the top of the table. If you put a pad on this or something, put something under it, it's probably not that big of a deal, like the non-slip things on there. But if you have a softer kind of surface, it's probably going to leave marks in it. Another not so great thing is if, like I showed, if you have yarn coming off to the side of the guide instead of straight through, which kind of defeats the purpose of the guide to an extent, it will push it in and knock it down, which it's not a great thing when you're in the midst of fast winding and it falls down and then all your yarn gets caked up under here. Not great, but it can be kind of prevented. And for me, like I said, I kind of like the spinning, but for a lot of people, it not being electric could be a con. For me, it's not really a con, but I know some people would rather just kind of sit and watch it go, check on it, kind of make sure things are not getting bunched up. But for me, I like this. So it's not much of a con for me, but it could be a con for other people that it's not electric. But there are plenty of electric ones out there that you could get. And last, kind of a consumer error, is it's small. I'm guessing it's small. It's made for smaller cakes. That's just my bad. I bought a smaller one. If you want this one, just know that your cakes are going to be smaller unless you work kind of hard on making sure that they don't bunch up under here. One thing that I did find with my bulky yarns is I can kind of move the cake up a little bit to give it a little bit more room. I mean, I'd have to take this down, but I could move the cake up a little bit so that it wouldn't get up under the bottom. But had I bought a bigger one, wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But I got this kind of as a test it out, try it out, see if I even like it kind of situation. And I do like it, and I will keep using this one whether or not I in the future get a bigger one. But I will use this one for smaller ones if I do buy a bigger one. Alright guys, that's going to be about it for me on this one. I hope you found this video helpful. If not, I'm very sorry. I'm very new to this speaking kind of one-on-one, even though it's to a camera situation. So I'm still getting used to it. But I hope I didn't ramble too much. I do like this. There are some cons, but I do like the winder. And I hope if you get it, you'll love it too. I will link this specific one down in the description so you can go and check it out for yourself. It did have a good amount of reviews. And I will say, do not get the one, if you're somebody who doesn't really look at reviews, don't get the one from the store, specifically Hobby Lobby. I went and I looked at the reviews on that one, and the reviews were terrible. It is not the same setup as this. It's kind of like this and straight out. It doesn't, I don't know if you'll be, yeah. It doesn't do this number, I don't think. I think it just sits straight and winds around, and I'm guessing you'd have to kind of guide it yourself. I'm not really sure, but there were a lot of bad reviews on that one. It was breaking, didn't wind the yarn very well. I just wouldn't recommend that one. Even though I haven't tested it out myself, I just saw the reviews. I am somebody who looks at reviews, and the reviews were not good. Okay, so again, that's going to be it for this one. I do hope you found it useful, and if you did, let me know down in the comments. That would be great. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me, and I will see you next time. Have fun crocheting or knitting or whatever yarn work you're doing.